Well, Algebra 1, this is our video key for our last lesson of the year, and we're looking at graphing quadratic equations from standard form. So this was a assignment that you had on Google Slides. We had 5 quadratic equations to graph, so let's get started by looking at number 1. Number 1, we were asked to graph the quadratic equation y equals negative x squared minus 6x minus 12. Hopefully, remember at the end of the lesson, we had talked about if our leading coefficient or leading term here is negative, we're going to have an downward opening parabola. If it's positive, our parabola is going to open up. So we know that much, that our parabola is going to be downward opening. Now we need to find our vertex and as well as our 4 other spots to get the overall shape. So we have 2 things we need to remember when graphing from standard form. First, what is standard form? Was y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Are we in standard form here? We are. Y, x squared, x, and then our constant at the end here. Now we need to find our vertex. So our vertex is going to be negative b over 2a. Well, what is a? A in our equation here is negative 1. And b is right here. It's our coefficient of our x term is negative 6. So we're going to plug that in here, and we're going to end up with negative 6. So it's going to be the opposite of negative 6. We'll end up with 6 over 2 times negative 1, which is going to equal 6 over negative 2, which we could reduce down to negative 3. So the x value of our vertex is going to be negative 3. So if you remember, what we did was we put a t-chart together. So we had x and y. We're going to find 5 points to graph this parabola. And right here in the middle, our middle point right here is going to be our vertex. So that's where we're going to put our negative 3. Going up, we're going to subtract 1. So negative 3 minus 1 is negative 4. And then negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5. Going down from the vertex, we're going to add 1. So negative 1, I keep saying that. Negative 3 plus 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 plus 1 is negative 1. So those are the 5 x values that we're going to plug into our equation here to get our y values. I'm going to go ahead and erase our a and b here. So now we're going to plug in, first we're going to plug in negative 3. So we'll have the opposite of negative 3 squared minus 6 times negative 3 minus 12. Now notice I kept that negative sign outside of the parentheses. If this had been written negative x squared like that, then the parentheses, the exponent applies to the negative sign as well. But it is not. So the exponent only applies to what's directly to its left. So it's going to apply directly to the negative 3. So we are going to end up with the opposite of negative 3 squared, which is 9. And then negative 6 times negative 3, that's plus 18. Minus 12. So we're going to get negative 9 plus 18. It's a positive 9. 9 minus 12, that's negative 3. So when x is negative 3, y is also negative 3. All right, let's plug in negative 4. We're going to plug in negative 4 for x. So I'm going to get the opposite of negative 4 squared minus 6 times negative 4 minus 12. Negative 4 squared is 16. We're taking the opposite of that, so negative 16. Negative 6 times negative 4, that's positive 24. And finally, minus 12. Well, negative 6 plus 24 gives us a positive 8. Positive 8 minus 12 is a negative 4. So when x is negative 4, y is negative 4. Let's plug in negative 5 and see what we get. We're going to have the opposite of negative 5 squared minus 6 times negative 5 minus 12. So negative 5 squared is 25. We'll take the opposite of that, negative 25. Negative 6 times negative 5 is a positive 30. Finally, our constant at the end, minus 12. So we're going to have negative 25 plus 30. That's going to give us a positive 5. 5 minus 12 equals negative 7. So when x is negative 5, y is negative 7. Now we just have to plug in negative 2 and negative 1. We'll plug in negative 2 here. We're going to have the opposite of negative 2 squared minus 6 times negative 2 minus 12. So negative 2 squared is 4. We're going to take the opposite of that. So we'll have negative 4 Negative 6 times negative 2 is a positive 12, and finally minus 12. So our 12 and or positive 12 and negative 12 cancel out, so we're going to have negative 4. So when x is negative 2, y is negative 4. And finally, we're going to plug in negative 1. We're going to get the opposite of negative 1 squared minus 6 times negative 1 minus 12. So negative 1 squared is 1. We're going to take the opposite of that. So we'll get negative 1. And then negative 6 times negative 1 is a positive 6. And then finally, minus 12. So negative 1 plus 6 is 5. 5 minus 12 is negative 7. So when x is negative 1, y is negative 7. Now this is why we put the vertex in the middle. If we've done our math right in calculating our x, y coordinates, we'll have a little mirror effect here. We'll have a perfect reflection. So as we go away from 3, you can see we have negative 4 and then we have negative 7. So we have that reflection going on, so we can be confident that we've done this correctly. So now we're just going to plot these points on our grid over here and then connect the dots. So minus 5 minus 7 is going to be right about here. Minus 4 minus 4 will be right here. Minus 3 minus 3, that's going to be our vertex, going to be right here. So our vertex, that's going to be our topmost point. Negative 2, negative 4 would be right here. And finally, negative 1, negative 7 will be right here. So as we connect these dots, this is what our parabola looks like right there. So that's our answer to number 1. Okay, number 2, we are asked to graph of the quadratic equation y equals x squared minus 4x plus 6. We can see our lead term here is positive, so we know our parabola is going to open up. So we have to identify a and b in our quadratic equation. A is the coefficient of our x squared term, so a is 1. B is our coefficient of our x term, so it's negative 4. These are the two values we're going to plug into our vertex formula here to find the x value of our vertex. So we're going to have negative b. B is already negative 4, so we're going to have a double negative. That'll be a positive 4 on top. We're going to have 2 times 1 on the bottom. So 4 over 2 is equal to 2. So our x value, let's draw our t-chart. Remember, we're looking for 5 points. So our vertex is going to be the point that's in the middle. So our x value will be 2. We're going to subtract going up. So 2 minus 1 is 1. 1 minus 1 is 0. We're going to add 1 going down. 2 plus 1 is 3. 3 plus 1 is 4. So these are the x values that we're going to plug into our equation here to calculate y. So we're going to plug in first 2 for x. We're going to get 2 squared minus 4 times 2 plus 6. So 2 squared is 4. Negative 4 times 2 is negative 8, and plus 6. So 4 minus 8 is negative 4. Negative 4 plus 6 is a positive 2. So when x is 2, y is also 2. Now we're going to plug in 1. So I'm going to have 1 squared minus 4 times 1 plus 6. That'll be 1 minus 4 plus 6. So 1 minus 4 is a negative 3. Negative 3 plus 6 is a positive 3. Next, we're going to plug in 0 for x. So I'm going to get 0 squared minus 4 times 0 plus 6. Or that'll equal 0 minus, well, 4 times 0 is 0 plus 6. 0 minus 0 plus 6 is 6. So when x is 0, y is 6. Now we're going to plug in our two values on the bottom here. We'll start with 3. We're going to get 3 squared minus 4 times 3 plus 6. 3 squared is 9. Negative 4 times 3 is a negative 12. And then finally plus 6. So 9 minus 12 is negative 3. Negative 3 plus 6 is a positive 3. So when x is 3, y is 3. Now we're going to plug in our last x value here. We're going to plug in 4 for x. We'll end up with 4 squared minus 4 times 4 plus 6. Well, 4 squared is 16. 4 times 4 is 16, so we'll subtract 16. Plus 6, well, 16 minus 6 is 0. Plus 6 is 6. So when x is 4, y is 6. So let's notice if we look at our vertex here as a mirror, we got to look and see if we have that reflection, and we do. We have 2, 3, 6. So we can be confident that we have calculated this correctly. So now we're going to plot these points on our grid over here. So our first one is going to be 0, 6. That'll be our first point right there. Next point will be 1, 3, which will be right there. Our vertex is going to be at 2, 2. So that's going to be our lowest spot on our parabola. Next, we're going to plot 3, 3, which is right here. And the final point that we're going to plot is at 4, 6. That's going to put us right about there. So now we just connect those dots. And right there is what our parabola looks like for number 2. Number 3, we are asked to graph the quadratic equation y equals x squared plus 2x minus 3. We are in standard form, x squared, x, and then our constant. And I'm also noticing that our lead term is positive, meaning our parabola is going to open up. Let's identify our a and b values. A is the coefficient of our x squared term, that's 1. B is our coefficient of our x term, which is 2. So those are the numbers that we're going to plug into our vertex formula. So we're going to have negative b, or that'll be negative 2 over 2 times a, that'll be 2 times 1, which is 2. Negative 2 over 2 is a negative 1. So the x value of our vertex is going to be negative 1. So we set up our t-chart, and we're looking for 5 points. Our middle point here, our vertex, our x value is going to be negative 1. We're going to subtract going up, so negative 1 minus 1 is negative 2. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. I'm going to add 1 going down, so negative 1 plus 1 is, or I'm sorry, negative 1 plus 1, is 0, and 0 plus 1 is 1. So those are the x values that we are going to plug into our equation here to calculate our y values. So first let's plug in our vertex of negative 1. So we'll get negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 3. Well, negative 1 squared is 1. 2 times negative 1 is a negative 2, and we'll be subtracting 3. So 1 minus 2 is a negative 1. Negative 1 minus 3 gives me negative 4. So when x is negative 1, y is negative 4. Next, we're going to plug in negative 2. So I'm going to get negative 2 squared plus 2 times negative 2 minus 3. Well, negative 2 squared is 4. 2 times negative 2 is a negative 4 minus 3. Well, 4 minus 4 is 0. Minus 3 is negative 3. So when x is negative 2, y is negative 3. Next, we're going to plug in negative 3 for x. So I'll get negative 3 squared plus 2 times negative 3 minus 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. 2 times negative 3 is a negative 6 minus 3. Well, 9 minus 6 is 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. So when x is negative 3, y is 0. Next, we're going to plug in 0 for x. So when it was 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 3. Well, 0 squared is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. Minus 3. So 0 plus 0 minus 3 is negative 3. So when x is 0, y is negative 3. And finally, we're going to plug in 1. We get 1 squared plus 2 times 1 minus 3. Well, 1 squared is just 1. 2 times 1 is 2 minus 3. So 1 plus 2 is 3. 3 minus 3 equals 0. So when x is 1, y is 0. So here are our 5 points we are going to plot. Let me double check first. Do I have that mirror effect? If I look at the vertex here, yeah, I got a good reflection here. Negative 3 and then 0. So I'm be confident that I did my calculations right. Let's start by plotting negative 3, 0. That is right here. I'm going to plot negative 2, negative 3. Should be right about there. Next point will be -1, -4. This is my vertex, so that's going to be the lowest point on my parabola. Next, I'm going to plot 0, -3, which is right there. And then finally, I'm going to plot the point 1, 0. So there are my 5 points. Just, I'm going to connect the dots. And there's what my parabola looks like for number 3. Number 4, we are asked to graph the quadratic equation y equals 2x squared plus 4x plus 5. And just looking real quick here, I notice my lead term here is positive, so I'm going to have a upward opening parabola. I want to make sure I'm still in standard form, so x squared, x constant, x squared, x constant. So I am good to go. So I just need to identify what my a is. A is my coefficient of my lead term, so that's 2. And b is going to be my coefficient of my x term, and that is 4. So I'm going to plug those into my vertex formula. I'll end up with -4 over 2 times a, which is 2 times 2. So I'll end up with -4 over 4, or -1. So the x value of my vertex is -1. Let's make the t-chart here. I'm looking for 5 points to plot on the graph. So my vertex, I'm going to put in the middle here. My x value is -1. I'm going to subtract 1 going up. So -1 minus 1 is -2. -2 minus 1 is -3. I'm going to add going down here. -1 plus 1, that is 0. And 0 plus 1 is 1. I'm going to erase my a and b value here so I can plug my x values into this equation. I'm going to start by plugging in my vertex. I'm going to plug in -1. I'm going to have 2 times -1 squared plus 4 times -1 plus 5. Well, -1 squared is 1, and 2 times 1, that's going to be 2. 4 times -1 is -4, and then my constant at the end, I'm going to add 5. So I have 2 minus 4, that's -2. -2 plus 5 is 3. So when x is -1, y is 3. Next value I'm going to plug in for x is -2. I'm going to have 2 times -2 squared plus 4 times -2 plus my constant of 5. Well, -2 squared is 4. 2 times 4 is 8. 4 times -2 is a -8. And finally, plus 5. Well, 8 minus 8 is 0. 0 plus 5 is 5. So when x is -2, y is going to be 5. Next value I'm going to plug in for x is -3. So I have 2 times -3 squared plus 4 times -3 plus 5. Well, -3 squared is 9. 2 times 9 is 18. 4 times -3 is a -12, and plus 5. Of 18 minus 12, that's 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. So when x is -3, y is 11. Finally, I'm going to plug in 0. So I'll have 2 times 0 squared plus 4 times 0 plus 5. 0 squared is 0. 2 times 0 is 0. Plus 4 times 0, that is 0. Plus 5. So 0 plus 0 plus 5. When x is 0, y is 5. Finally, I'm going to plug in 1 for x. So I'm going to get 2 times 1 squared plus 4 times 1 plus 5. Well, 1 squared is 1. 2 times 1 is 2. 4 times 1 is 4. And then I'm going to add my constant of 5 at the end. So 2 plus 4 is 6. 6 plus 5 is 11. So when x is 1, y is 11. Now I look at my t-chart here. This is my vertex. So I'm going to look, make sure I got that nice reflection going on. So I started 3, 5, 11. I do have a reflection, so I can be confident these are my 5 points that are going to make up my parabola. So I'm going to start by graphing the first one at -3, 11. -3, this kind of goes off the chart for me, so I'm just going to kind of guesstimate it right there. -2, 5 is my next point. should be right there. -1, 3. That's my vertex, so that's going to be the lowest point on my parabola. Finally, 0, 5, which would be right there. And the last point here, 1, 11, again, kind of going off the grid, but I'm going to guesstimate it right there. So I'll connect the dots. And that's what my parabola looks like for number 4. Number 5, we are asked to graph the quadratic equation y equals -x squared minus 4x minus 7. First thing I want to do is make sure I'm still in standard form, x squared, x, and a constant. Here I am, x squared, then x, then a constant. So I am in standard form. And I am noticing also that my lead term here is negative. That means my parabola is going to open up downwards. So I want to, since I'm in standard form, identify my a and my b. A is my coefficient with my x squared term, that's -1. B is going to be my coefficient with my x term, that's -4. So now that I have my A and B, I'm going to plug them into my vertex formula. So I have -b. If I already have a -4 for B, I'm going to have a -4. Well, two negatives make a positive. So I'll have 4 in the numerator. Then I'm going to have 2 times A, or 2 times -1. So that'll give me 4 over -2. Or I can just write that as simply -2. So the x value of my vertex is going to be -2. So I'll go ahead and make my t-chart of x, y. I'm going to be looking for 5 points. This middle point here, I'm going to have -2 for my x value. I'm going to subtract 1 going up. So -2 minus 1 is a -3. -3 minus 1 is -4. I'm going to add 1 going down. -2 plus 1 is -1. -1 plus 1 is 0. So these are values that I'm going to plug into my equation here. Drop my eraser. I'm going to plug these x values into my equation here to calculate my y. So the first value, I'm going to plug in my vertex first. I'm going to get the opposite of -2 squared minus 4 times -2 minus 7. Well, -2 squared is 4. I'm going to take the opposite of that though, so -4. I have -4 times -2, that is a positive 8. And then finally, I'm going to subtract my constant of 7. So -4 plus 8 is a positive 4, and 4 minus 7 is a -3. So when x is -2, my y is -3. Next value I'm going to look at is, I'm going to plug in -3, so I'll get the opposite of -3 squared minus 4 times the -3 minus 7. Well, -3 squared is 9. The opposite of that is -9. -4 times -3 is a positive 12. And finally subtract my constant of 7. So -9 plus 12 is a positive 3. 3 minus 7 is -4. So when x is -3, y is -4. The next value I'm going to plug in for x is going to be -4. I'm going to get the opposite of -4 squared minus 4 times -4 and minus my constant of 7. Well, -4 squared is 16. The opposite of that is -16. -4 times -4 is a positive 16. And then I'm going to subtract my constant of 7. Well, -16 plus 16 is 0. 0 minus 7, that is -7. So when x is -4, y is -7. Now I'm going to plug in -1 for x. So I'll get the opposite of -1 squared minus 4 times -1 minus 7. So I'll get -1 squared is 1. The opposite of that is -1. -4 times -1 is a positive 4. And minus 7. So -1 plus 4 is positive 3. 3 minus 7 is -4. So when x equals -1, y equals -4. Finally, I'm going to plug in 0 for x. I'll get the opposite of 0 squared minus 4 times 0 minus 7. Well, 0 squared is a 0. And -4 times 0 is 0. And I'm going to subtract my constant of 7. 0 minus 7 is -7. So when x equals 0, y equals -7. So I'm going to check at my vertex right here and make sure I have a reflection. You see if I start at -3, I go -4 and -7. I have a nice reflection there. So I can be confident that I've calculated my points correctly. I'm going to plot these on the graph now. So -4, -7 is right about here. -3, oh, no, it's not. That was +7. -4, -7 is going to be right about here. -3, -4 will be right here. -2, -3 will be right there. -1, -4 right there. And finally 0, -7 right there. So there are my 5 points. I'm going to connect the dots, and there is my graph for number 5. Hopefully going through these helped you. If you got stuck on any of these, hopefully going through these kind of showed you where you might be stuck at and how to fix where you're at. If not, if you're still struggling on any of these, please email me so we can work that out.